Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to this special live, or I'm sorry, welcome to this special Christmas Eve edition of the Mikestand. Hopefully, everybody's having a good holiday this year. As of course we're in the final stretch here. Christmas Eve tonight, special Christmas Eve edition of the Mikestand, as I said. As I mentioned last night, we're going to be talking about, some of the animated Christmas classics, some of my favorites, of course, talking about them. Um, you know, um, and I just decided in the last couple of days I was going to try to invite some people on to join me to see if they wanted to, join in on the conversation and all that. I did just a little while ago, so we're going to give them at least a few minutes before we get started. Also, a friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. That goes for both my YouTube and my Rumble audiences. Um, and and as I said, and then of course tonight, with tonight being especially, as I mentioned you guys earlier, this would be the last show for this week. As we won't be doing a show tomorrow or on Friday, along with of course our normal time off Saturday. So what we are going to do though is, as I said, we're going to talk a little bit, reminisce a little bit about some of the you know reminisce a little bit about some of the cartoon animated cartoon classes we grew up with or may have just discovered more recently that were from when we were growing up. Um, and then of course we'll be doing the wrestling wrap up, and we'll be doing kind of an extended run with that, considering that we're not going to be on for the next couple of days here extra. We'll kind of get everybody caught up on what happened on last night's NXT. Look ahead to not only tonight's Dynamite as AEW will be, of course, be looking to prepare for this Saturday's um, World End pay per view, which are the semifinals and the finals of the Continental Classic. We'll be talking about that. We'll be looking ahead to the collision episode uh, before that. We'll also be looking ahead to, of course, tomorrow night's Impact and Ring of Honor shows. If they are actually, I don't know if they're actually, with tomorrow being Christmas, I don't even know if they're going to have episodes of those on, but we'll check into that as well. And then, of course, we'll wrap up with a very special edition of This Day in Niche History, Christmas in Niche History, in which I found some things that happened either on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And ironically, I got two selections each, two from 1985 and two from 2005. So that's going to be that's kind of funny when I was looking that stuff up. But with that being said, as I said, we're gonna wait. We're just normally I'd start by about now, but I'm gonna give it a little longer here. Um, I'm gonna wait just a little longer than usual to give my potential guest a shot to come in if they should choose. Maybe normally I would start everything up at around 5 minutes into the show. Maybe I'll extend it to 10 minutes to see if anybody does decide to accept my invite. And if nobody's here by the 10-minute mark, then we'll get right into the talking about the um, Anyways, as I said, I do hope everybody's having a. And of course, aside from today being Christmas Eve, today is also Wednesday, which is Hump Day. So I'm sure everybody's getting over the hump this week, as this week is kind of a shorter week for a lot of people because of the holidays. And I actually know some people who are probably already out of town for the holidays, visiting their families. Um, anyways, as I said, we just wait and see if anybody else shows up. If not, then I'll just get going. As I said, I'm gonna wait till about 10 minutes. Normally, I would start by now, but I want to go ahead and give my guests a shot to see if they will show up or not. And if not, then we'll just get right into talking about what we're going to talk about. Oh, it looks like one of my guests has shown up. Hey, Sabrina.
Hi.
Hello. You got my invite, I see.
I mean, yes, I did. Sorry.
No problem. And I did ask. I didn't ask him on the show, but I asked him before the show. I did ask him about your coat. Basically, it was the typical stuff. He said he did promise you. He just didn't say when he would get it to you. So
Well, it's not really cold. What is it? A balmy 58 degrees outside in Indiana
Mhm.
on a winter day. It's like December the 24th, and normally we have snow, and it's so cold that we're running around in the backyard. And we are literally, me and my friend are setting out in her backyard.
Hmm.
Just, yeah.
And you're in the northern part of Indiana, right?
No, I'm more like we're kind of southernish.
Southernish. Okay.
Yeah,
So at least you're probably not as bad off as you would be if you were a little further north. Then,
yeah.
like,
Like if I was up around the Great Lakes area or like Lake Michigan or Chicago, yeah, I would have. Well, yeah, Great Lakes area in Chicago area. Yeah, I would be really. But no, it's cold. But it's like, hold on. Um, what is the temperature? It's 56 degrees, not 59. It's 56. And this isn't normal for us. Yeah.
not normal. How is it warmer than usual or cooler than usual?
Extremely warmer than normal.
Hmm.
Extremely. It's way warmer.
If it shows up, of course, a friendly reminder to everybody. If you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here that we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, Sabrina, what I decided to do for this week,
Yeah,
I decided rather than go up through Tuesday, take Wednesday and Thursday off, and then come back Friday and then have Saturday, have that mess. I just decided just go straight through to Wednesday and then just take those 3 days off instead. And I knew that with this being Christmas Eve, I figured, the one there probably wasn't going to be a whole lot in terms of needs to do,
right.
because everybody's kind of off doing family stuff, but also figured with this being the holiday season and stuff like that, it might be a good time to kind of just reminisce about some of the classic animated Christmas specials that we grew up watching. Initially, I was just going to do it myself, but then after I visited Metal's show the other night and we had a good discussion, I figured I'd open it up to some of you guys if you guys wanted to come, whoever wanted to come on to reminisce and talk a little bit. I'm sure you might have some memories you might want to share of some of those classic Christmas cartoons you grew up with, whether it was the stuff in the like the 60s, like Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol, or Charlie
Mr.
Brown Christmas, or the Rankin Bass stuff, or you get the Hanna-Barbera stuff in the 70s and 80s, like as I've always said, my all-time favorite is Yogi's First Christmas. Um, I was kind of hoping that Metal might join me anyways, and even though he indicated he probably was going to have plans, anyways, because he has some critique about some of those specials, particularly some of the Hanna-Barbera stuff, and I
Right.
wanted to discuss more with him. But hey there, Not Suri, welcome to the show. Merry Christmas, and by the way, I know I didn't say it yet, but I should say it now. Merry Christmas to everybody. Um, yeah, so with that being said, let's see, we're at what we're coming up on 11 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm just I'm just thinking, well, should I wait just a little longer, or shall we just get right into talking about
Well,
the
Mike, I do not mean to interrupt, but I'm having a technical issue on my end, and I do not have my power source to plug in because I'm doing this through my phone, obviously, because I'm outdoors. But I'm going to try to fix my issue, and I will try to come back on. Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Well, I guess we'll have to wait then a few more minutes, so you can get that settled and see if anybody else comes in. But hopefully you'll be back.
Hopefully. Yes, hopefully. But I will be hopefully back.
All right.
Okay. All right.
So deck the halls with a bunch of manga. Well, yeah, there you go. That's a nice thing. So yeah, I sometimes technical issues like that are kind of a pain. Why did YouTube consider Natsuri's comment? I have no idea. I have no idea. Deck the halls with a bunch of manga. Well, it could be one of two. It could be one of two things there, Fitzozo. If you're talking about, they consider Deck the Halls with a bunch of manga controversial, it could be one of two possibilities. Either because they use the word deck with which deck is a slang term to mean to hit somebody. Um, like when you deck somebody, you hit them. Or since deck the halls is kind of a Christian term. It's linked to Christianity in a way. Um, that could be it too. I don't know, but let's see. That's very, I guess. The X Files theme plays. No, but again, I wasn't even aware because, of course, I'm like on my I'm on my I'm looking at the StreamYard screen right now, even though I do periodically go back and forth between like the StreamYard, Rumble, and YouTube screens to check stuff. But I didn't, even when I was over at the YouTube screen, I didn't see anything seem to indicate like any kind of oh, and apparently what must have been the Deck the Halls comment there that I was considered because I don't see it on the YouTube page here. Which again, one of two again one of two possibilities there with that is either because they use the word deck is a slang term meaning to strike somebody, either that maybe, or maybe because, as I said, Deck the Halls has some Christian connections, and we know that YouTube is a bit of a left leaning platform. Unfortunately, at least their higher ups are. But yeah, it's due to YouTube's new bot moderating stuff. Blah blah blah. It's primitive. Yeah. Ah. But anyways, as I said, we're just waiting to see, of course, if Sabrina can come back and or if maybe more people will show up to participate. Just in case you guys didn't hear me earlier, we're going to talk a bit about some some of the classics, classic Christmas cartoons, of course, including the Rankin Bass stuff of like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, and Santa Claus Coming to Town, Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol, Santa, Three Bears, some of the Hanna-Barbera Christmas specials, And if there's anything, if there are any like Christmas specials you guys want to mention or talk about or ask about, feel free to do so with that as well. This gonna be kind of a more of a loosey goosey show. I mean, we are still gonna be doing. Obviously, we will. I still have the rest and wrap up and this day in each history segments to I will be doing, but just give me a moment. I gotta go check something real quick. I'm gonna put some music on while I'm gone. But just give me a sec here. All right, I'm back. Anyways, heard a cat outside my room, so I didn't know if it was just outside my room or out my window, or whatever. But I heard a cat, so I had to see what's going on there because we do have cats around the house here. Anyways, as I said, I'm just waiting. We're gonna wait just a couple more minutes here, then we'll probably start talking about the. Want to give Sabrina a chance to come back, obviously, and um, or of course, see if anybody else decides to show up here. And if not, then we will really get into. We're going to talk about probably to start. So I mean, and of course, as I said a moment ago, if there's any Christmas animated Christmas specials that I hadn't mentioned that that maybe you wanted to bring up, feel free to do so. We can talk about those as well. If it's something I've seen, I'll be able to give more commentary on. If not, then we'll just wing it. Anyway, so let's see, 1934. So, all right, just as I said, just waiting for the. All right. Okay. So now we hit the 20-minute mark. If Sabrina comes back, we'll bring her in, obviously. But with that being said, so yeah, so obviously, I always look forward to this time of year because of some of the cool Christmas special, animated Christmas specials. The Rankin Bass stuff. Primarily with like Santa Claus. Um, Santa Claus is coming to town. Hold on, excuse me one more time, guys. I'll be right back. I'm back. One of our cats was wanting out, so had to let it out. So, anyways, let's see. Obviously, don't celebrate any European holidays. Have no reason to. So, if you mean by European holiday, a holiday that originated in Europe, with I guess some more of the Santa Claus mythos, um, I guess being born out of the Central European region. Okay, I guess I can understand that. But even in that, though, doesn't necessarily mean that you can't enjoy a good Christmas cartoon if you happen to watch it, or even if you haven't watched them in years, maybe you watch them when you were a kid and enjoyed them. But anyways, so as I said, so there were there have always been some great classics, like a lot of stuff I tend to like watching, of course, you had the Rankin Bass stuff from the 60s and 70s there with, initially Rudolph, the Red-Nosed Reindeer, um, Frosty the Snowman, and Santa Claus Coming to Town. And then, you have some of the fallouts like Frosty's Winter Wonderland, and all that. Well, Catholicism originates from Europe. Hmm. Well, if you're looking at the more Christianity side of it, remember Jesus Christ was originally, even though he was, God made flesh, he was he was Jewish. So, Christianity, you could argue that Judeo Christianity mythos was born out of the Middle East, obviously. You're talking about Judeo Christian Christmas traditions, focusing more on the birth of Christ and like the little drummer boy and the three wise men and all that. That stuff was more born out of the Middle East, not Europe. But when you're talking about European, I figured that when you were talking about European holidays, or the idea of Christmas being a European holiday, I figured you were talking about more the mythos surrounding Santa Claus, and the legends of Santa Claus and Saint Nick and some of the stories that were born out of that. So, anyways, back to the, let's see. I'm not a Christian nor an atheist for that matter. Okay? And yes, I see Jesus as one of God's messengers. Again, I'm just going on, on a lot of, what, the mythos, and based on what you initially said there, if it shows up. But as I said, with that being said, getting back to, so yeah, so the Ray and Bass stuff was pretty pretty cool. I know Metal talked a lot about it on his show the other night too, how he liked like some of the things he liked, some of the things he didn't like. Again, would have liked to have him on my show here to discuss that more, because I know that he liked Yukon Cornelius, and I can see his point about Yukon Cornelius being kind of the cool character, that rough outdoorsman type character. And that does have some appeal. Like, the one thing I would have probably had, I at least would have wanted to flesh out with him a bit was, of course, his dislike of the Hermie character. I mean, on some levels, I guess I can understand partly why he may not like it. I mean, with just the his comments on, I guess how Hermie was somewhat portrayed, in terms of his voice and all that. Yeah, I could see that maybe that could be considered annoying. But then elves in general, at least when you're looking at it, and looking at a special that was probably geared more towards kids. Sometimes to some adults that might, even though he said that a lot of these issues he's had since he was watching them as a kid. So, but in looking at those stories, though, there were some, like in the Rudolph story, the whole idea, well, we're just a couple of misfits, because Hermie wanted to be a dentist. He didn't want to make toys. He wanted to be a dentist, which actually was probably kind of a good thing, considering that, yeah, at least with a lot of the lore that we're supposed to believe, everybody up in, maybe some people would argue that's why Santa's so, fat, because he eats too much candy or what have you. But then, and it's kind of funny, and we get also into Santa Claus coming to town, that mythos too. And I know there have been a few other, there was like of course Rudolph and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Santa Claus coming to town specials were stop motion animation, which they were using like puppets to play out the roles. Even though as even Metal had pointed out the other night, a lot of people tend to mistake stop motion for claymation, which is not necessarily the same thing. Usually with stop motion, usually they utilize puppets. You've seen, many companies use those over the years, going all the way back to the 40s. Well, anyways, but again, in the stories, in a lot of the stories, Rudolph, once that blizzard came in, and and the thing that made him a misfit is the thing that ended up helping them save Christmas, because as the line in the song goes, Rudolph with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight, to kind of light their way through that storm and all the snow and hail that's coming down, in their path, and fog and all that. Um, I'm just seeing if. Anyways, so yeah, um, but yeah, the story behind it, like, I know that one of the aspects that Metal had pointed out with the Santa Claus coming, him acting more as a vigilante with, and even in the special itself, they were pointing out just how stupid such a law was, to say, oh, no more toys, just simply because one of your politicians sat there was just couldn't watch a step. You know, now granted, yeah, you shouldn't leave toys out either way, but that is just so extreme to, oh, let's cancel Christmas, or let's just say that no, nobody can have any more toys because you might forget to pick up after yourself. Yeah, that's that's what they call overkill, folks. But the story, the story of Santa, and there have been some other specials, some other like animated specials that talked about that too. Talked about the different names that Santa Claus is. Of course, in at least in the Rankin Bass special, Claus was his name at birth. Kringle was his adopted name. Chris Kringle, being adopted by the Kringle, elf family, and then he became known as Saint Nick. Now the Saint Nick nickname is more from some of the European mythos about Santa Claus as well, where there actually was, I think there was I think there was like a bishop or something who was known for, and this is again one of the other stories associated with the Santa Claus legend. There was a saint. There actually was a Saint Nicholas who would actually go out and deliver toys to the local village children, um, as a way to making um, their days brighter. So let's see. Let me move on to another one. Another classic, another one of my favorites. Santa and the Three Bears. Now that one came out in 1970. That one, of course, it starred the voices of Hal Smith, who would of course portray Santa Claus as well as the Ranger in that one, but also would come to provide the voice of Santa in a number of Christmas specials throughout the 70s and early 80s. And Gene Vanderpill, the voice of Wilma Flintstone, who would voice the Mother Bear. Now, Santa and the Three Bears had a similar premise to Yogi's First Christmas. As you all know, Yogi's First Christmas is, as I've said on several occasions, is probably my all-time favorite. My all-time favorite. Christmas special. Now, the similarities between Santa's First Christmas, or Santa and the Three Bears, and Yogi's First Christmas are, there's these bears whose hibernation was, for one reason or another, disrupted, and they come to learn about Christmas, and then and really get into the holiday spirit. Now, in the case of Santa and the Three Bears, yeah, the two cubs there, Nikona and Chinook, who were who as with a lot of young kids, right? I'm sure there are some parents who know this for a fact here. Sometimes you have young kids who they don't want to always go to bed when they're supposed to, right? They always want to stay up a little later. They want to be like mommy and daddy. They want to stay up late, but they don't fully understand, that they need their sleep. You know, um, but and as was the case in this one, the two cubs they didn't want to go to sleep when their mom was saying, "Yeah, we need to get to our hibernation," you know, and they just wanted to stay up, and then they went and were pestering the ranger, and the ranger was telling, they saw what the ranger was doing in terms of his Christmas preparations, and they started asking questions, and he told them about the Christmas season, you know. Um, and they did kind of like as in some other specials like the Charlie Brown Christmas. They did slip in the story of Jesus' birth as well in there, you know. But the funny thing about Santa of the Three Bears too was that initially 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 when they were pitching it to the networks to try to get it shown on TV, the networks didn't want it because there was no villain. They say, well, no villain, no conflict. Oh, this gonna be a boring. It's gonna be a boring. It's gonna probably be a boring special. But actually, I don't. I think that the fact that there's no real like huge conflict. That the main story is around the whole premise of the Cubs staying up to see Santa, and we've seen that not just in other cartoons and all that. We've seen that, of course, as I mentioned earlier, in Yogi's First Christmas. There was also the like the 1939. I think it was 1939, 1940, around there. Christmas season short Bedtime for Sniffles, which starred the Warner Brothers character Sniffles, the mouse trying to stay up to meet Santa. So that one was also kind of a cute one. It was kind of, where Sniffles is doing everything from drinking coffee to like just slapping himself in the face, splashing water on his face, just doing anything again, and his astral self kept kind of going, come back to bed, go to sleep, you know. But yeah, so Santa and the Three Bears, I think it's probably one of the best Christmas specials that can be out there because, yeah, there might not be a huge. I think the most drama in the whole film is, comes from when Nana Bear, when the mother bear goes to Ranger Smith to ask him about this Christmas stuff, she's initially angry because she thought that he lied to them, but it wasn't a lie. It was just more that it's more of a legend than anything else. And Nana was disappointed that she was going to have to tell her kids that, Santa Claus might not be coming. So what Ranger Smith decided to do was he decided, well, he's going to give them the Christmas experience. He's going to try to go there, and the Cubs and the mother were sitting waiting up for the Ranger dressed in the Santa Claus outfit, only for there to be a big blizzard coming into to only for the ranger to be coming in to keep him from being there in a timely manner, But what ended up happening is the real Santa Claus did show up, probably due to the strong faith that the children had. And of course, Santa never wants to disappoint the little kids, right? We all know that. But it's a very endearing. Santa and the Three Bears is one of those. And the thing about it too is that even though, and like here in Southern California where I'm at, there was a number of years there where our one of our local TV stations, KTLA, which now is a CW affiliate. I don't know if they still do this, but for many years, particularly when I was growing up, they would actually they would show it, like maybe the Sunday before, for instance, or what have you, as a special, what have you, for everybody to watch. I don't know if any of the TV stations, any of the cable channels or whatever still show it now and again, but it's one of those specials though. Santa and the Three Bears is one of those specials where, and again, there's probably more people who live in like more areas like Utah and Montana and Wyoming could probably be more inclined to do this. But you sit there in your house, in your cabin, everybody, get a nice fire going, and then all gather around the TV to click on, Santa and the Three Bears, watch it together as a family. It's one of those very feel-good type Christmas specials. That just does have a way of, really brightening your day. Let's see. Oh wow, we're already at the 42-minute mark. Oh, I guess. Oh, if it shows, I guess had another thing to add here. I didn't catch this, but catching it. Yes, Nick was a Roman Catholic during the beginning of Catholicism. It's, anyways, but anyway, so that's Santa and the Three Bears for you. Of course, Yogi's First Christmas had a very similar premise, in which Yogi in Yogi's case, he's actually woken up by the commotion of them celebrating Christmas in the Jellystone Lodge, much to Ranger Smith and Mr. Dingwell's chagrin, and then after inadvertently saving Sophie Throckmorton and her nephew Snively, Yogi decides to, Yogi becomes so endeared, Sophie Throckmorton likes Yogi so much. Ranger Smith realizes that he can't force Yogi to go back to his cave now, so he's got to let Yogi just stick around because Mrs. Throckmorton, likes Yogi. Yogi is, as she puts it, a charming bear, and you hear Snively and Ranger Smith go, "Charming bear, yeah." And some of the funny aspects of Yogi's First Christmas, of course, have it in that Yogi keeps doing good, and it's just more happenstance. It's like, happy accidents is what you might call some of the stuff that, even though you do have an antagonist in Herman the Hermit who just hates all the noise. even though what Herman I don't think realizes, he's apparently taken up residence within the park, within Jellystone, I guess, somewhere in the mountains parts. First off, I don't know if that's even back then if that was even legal, but he just wants people to just leave the park and leave him alone. He doesn't want peace and quiet and that dang Christmas crowd. Yeah. But then you see kind of by the end, you see Yogi's happy accidents end up melting the icy hearts of both Herman and Snidely, and they end up loving Christmas. So some of the little stories and side stories like that, the point of Yogi trying to stay awake through Christmas and having him just being steadily promoted each time he does something good. Even though in some cases you knew he didn't have one iota he did not know one iota what he was doing in some of those, like when he was made ski instructor, he had no idea what a ski instructor actually did. He didn't even really have a clue what skiing was. He was like, even Snagglebutt pointing out to him, that is impossible, when he was talking about skiing up the mountain. Skiing usually works with gravity, not against it, though. There's again, it's a very just as Yogi is a charming bear, Yogi's First Christmas is a charming special, and I obviously would highly recommend it. And of course, there have been over the years have been numerous. And one other thing to kind of talk about too, there have been numerous adaptations of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, the story of Ebenezer Scrooge. We've seen it, 1971, Chuck Jones, and something that even Metal and I were talking about the other night a little bit. I myself just recently watched, I think for the first time, the 1971 version of A Christmas Carol that was done by Chuck Jones. That one was pretty surreal. That one was probably, and Metal pointed this out, that was probably considered probably closer to the actual book than any of the other adaptations. It was very dark, very surreal. Imagery was pretty dark. I mean, the underlying story was still there. I mean, the Flintstone, and just about every major cartoon character has had some adaptation of it in some form or another. The Flintstones Christmas Carol in 1994. Bugs Bunny Christmas Carol is part of Bugs Bunny's Christmas Tales, and I think it was 1980, maybe same year as Yogi's First Christmas came out. Let's see. The Jetsons did an episode with a Christmas Carol adaptation. Anyways, so yeah, we talked quite a bit about his Christmas specials. So I'm actually going to go ahead and move on into the wrestling wrap up. Now, if we did have guests tonight, I was planning on making this a 2-hour show, but with the fact that we didn't, Sabrina tried to come in, but technical difficulties kept her from joining us. Unfortunately, so. But with that, I'm going to move on to the wrestling wrap up a bit here and look back to last night's NXT. Look ahead to some of the AEW stuff coming up over the next few days here. Oh boy. All right. Well, guess there's not much I can say about, because apparently cage match right now is unavailable for some reason. I'm not too thrilled about that. So I guess we'll skip the we will of course skip the wrestling wrap up tonight, unfortunately. But what I will tell you from what I do remember is that and I've already mentioned this, of course, AW will have I'll get you all caught up on Monday, hopefully. Hopefully by then. Um cage match will be back up and running, but I guess it's for now available. So what we are going to do though is I'm going to move on then to the this day in each history segment, as well in this case tonight's episode is not going to be just this day in each. It's going to be Christmas in each history. So with today being of course today being Christmas Eve 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look back at Christmas in each history. Christmas in each history. All right, so first off, we're going to go back 40 years ago today. As on this date 40 years ago. This date 40 years ago. Let me bring it up here. On this date 40 years ago, 40 years ago, the 340th issue of Archie went on sale on this date back in 1985. It sold for 65 cents, 32 pages. So on this date back in 1985, 340th issue of Archie went on sale in 1985 and included, of course, the Archie stories Rest in Peace, The Icebreaker, The Skin Game, and Some Kind of Emergency, and the Sabrina story Queen of the Hex. And moving ahead to the year 2005 on this date in the year 2005, 20 years ago today, and I'll bring that up. On this date, actually 20 years ago today, I'm sorry, 20 years ago today in the year 2005. In the year 2005, 20 years ago today, Feels Da Capo completed its run on this date back in the year 2005. So 20 years ago today, Feel Studios Da Capo completed its run on Japanese television on date back in 2005, 20 years ago. And now, as we prepare to talk about what's going on tomorrow, let's see now. Oh yeah. Now to look ahead to what's going down on. So 40 years ago tomorrow, Christmas Day. And the only reason I still was able to have this up because I've had this up for last few hours. So so that's why this one wasn't like all messed up. I already had this set up. So, but with that being said, on tomorrow's date, 40 years ago, World Class Championship Wrestling, an NWA affiliate at that point in time, had its Christmas Star Wars event back in 1985. The main event saw a lights out six-man tag team match in which the Von Erichs of Kerry, Kevin, and Lance Von Erich defeated the Fabulous Freebirds of Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes, and Buddy Roberts at a time when the Von Erichs and the Freebirds were in a very, very heated feud in Texas there. You also saw in a chain match, Bruiser Brody defeat the One Man Gang in a Bruiser Brody in a chain match. Now, a chain match, much like a bull rope match, or really, as if it is what I think it is, the two guys are linked together by a chain. Had to incapacitate a guy enough to drag him around the corner and tag four turnbuckles consecutively. Antonio Inoki defeated Steve Williams in just over 8 minutes. Let's see. In a match for the North American Tag Team Championships, the Cosmic Cowboys of Kerry and Kevin Von Erich defeated the champions Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez by DQ. They won the match, but not the titles, as of course titles cannot change hands via DQ. Then you also saw Lance Von Erich defeat Rick Rude via DQ in a match for the American Heavyweight Championship. Of course, Rick Rude, who was managed by Percy Pringle III, who most fans would probably remember better as Paul Bearer, Undertaker's and that's at least a lot of the big matches that happened on this day on back 40 years ago tomorrow. Then we, of course, move ahead to 2005. We move ahead to the year 2005. On tomorrow's date, 20 years ago. Tomorrow's date, 20 years ago, in the year 2005. Let's see. The Adult Swim show, the Adult Swim animated series from William Street, Stroker and Hoop, concluded its run on Adult Swim on this date on tomorrow's date 20 years ago. So on tomorrow's date 20 years ago, William Street's Stroker and Hoop completed its run on Adult Swim on that date back in 2005. Before we leave, let me just try one more time here. Let's see if maybe that issue resolved itself or not. But let me just check for that. Yeah, still all right. So I guess right now, for the most part, cage matches having some issues right now. But with that being said, never seen it. Yeah. Well, with that being said, I thank everybody for being here tonight. As I said, this is the last show for the week. We'll be back here, of course, on Sunday, as I'll be joined by Apex from Apex Comics. We'll be taking another trip down Comics History Lane. We'll be looking at some comics that went on sale from Fox Feature Syndicate. We'll be looking at such features as the likes of Samson, as Green Mask, the Voodoo Man, and Patty O'Day. And then, of course, we'll be back here on Monday with more Neat News. Hopefully by then, I'm pretty sure it will be. Cage match will be back up and running correctly, and I'll be able to give you guys more. basically the big wrestling thing going on this week, of course, is Saturday. AEW will be doing AEW will be doing their World End pay per view, the semifinals and finals of the Continental Classic will be happening there, as well as a four-way match for the AEW World Heavyweight Champion between, of course, current champ Mojo and former champions Hangman Adam Page, Swerve Strickland, and MJF. So, with that being said, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here on Sunday. Bye.